This is Peter Martin and
Murray Rougeau.
and we're just preparing for our next podcast, and this is going to be at the museum. But before we head over to the museum, we're just at the engine on Plessy. Now, what were we doing at the engine, Murray?
In this cold weather?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were hanging lights around the wreath.
So the big wreath on the engine, Murray arranged for this big wreath to be made and hung, and we decided it needed Christmas lights. So these two old guys, Murray and I, were in the cold, up a ladder, hanging little Christmas lights. Was that an experience, Murray?
I'd forgotten what it was like to work in your bare hands with metal or with pliers or something like that. But haven't done that for a while. But yeah, the wreath is beautiful. But you and I drove by it last night, and it actually, we felt that it needed lights. And so we went down to the museum and we went to all their lights, and we got a couple of sets and some extension cords, and it's ready to go. Well, it's finished now, so you'll be able to see it at nighttime.
Yeah, and that's going to be great. And the reason we talk about the engine at this moment, because we're going to the museum, that a lot of people don't realize, or they're getting to realize at least, that the engine is an artifact owned and managed and maintained and protected by the Transcona Museum that's located on Bond and Regent. So it's important for people to know that it's an important artifact for the museum. And do you think maybe, Murray, that some people now will be encouraged to actually see what else we have in the museum?
Well, it's a prelude to to what we're going to talk about at the museum, and like we discussed, Peter, you and I, that perhaps by us doing the work on the engine, make people aware that, hey, there must be something else to this engine, like the museum part of it. And I'll tell you, the committee that we had and with Alana, the curator and everything, it was a real project. And I think you'll mention that what the cost was, $600,000 we raised for it. So yeah, it's exciting, and it's part of the museum.
Yeah, and it was interesting. We formed a subcommittee of the board, and Murray was part of that subcommittee. In fact, he was the only non-board member who was part of the committee. And at one point, we were all preparing for the worst. We said, we got to raise over $600,000. We better create a plan to build a structure that's worth less. If we could only raise $200,000, then we got to build a building that's worth $200,000. Remember those days, Murray, where we really doubted that we'd be able to successfully raise the money?
Well, I do remember them, and partly because I was the biggest doubter. I had my concerns. I couldn't see where we were going to raise that kind of money. But lo and behold, there's grants out there, and the province stepped up to the plate, and the CNR stepped up to the plate and gave us money. So by the time it was all over, I think it was about $620,000 actually, Peter, for it. And now the city of Winnipeg has just finished the last of the asphalting around the walkway and everything, so now people won't have to walk through mud or water. It's all asphalted, beautiful. So I think we can honestly say that it's where we're at now as far as the work being completed.
Right, Murray, and what's exciting too for me is that we actually added stairs to the plan. So on the engine, you can't see on the back side of the engine. On the east side, we have stairs going up so that people can go up the stairs, actually go in the cab to actually see what the workings are of a steam locomotive cab on all the dials and gauges and stuff. So that was something that was pretty difficult for people to get up. About that, we're going to head over to the museum shortly so we can talk about other stuff going on in the museum. But the key is just, if you haven't been to the museum, if you're a newcomer to Transcona or been there a long time, go to the museum, check it out, ask some questions of the curator and assistant curator. Right, Murray?
Yeah, that's right, Peter. And should we mention about the portraits that people can have pictures taken of with Santa at the engine?
They may be too late by the time they hear this, but really this is the first time ever that we're having Santa and Mrs. Claus at the engine for the youth of our community, kind of get pictures right inside the cab with Santa and Mrs. Claus, and that's a first for the community ever.
Yeah. So it's exciting for us.
It is exciting. Yeah. So that's it. We're going to head over to the museum now, but we just want to remind you folks that we're looking for ideas for podcasts, and if you have ideas, just contact Murray and I through Facebook or other means and give us your idea. But we just want to make sure our podcast includes things that are of interest to the citizens.
Yeah.
Good morning. It's Peter Martin.
And Murray Rougeau once again.
And this is podcast, I believe it's podcast number 7. And
you're right.
Today we're at the Transcona Museum. And for those who don't know where the Transcona Museum is, it's the corner of Bond and Regent. Okay, let's get started. And first of all, I'll ask Alana to introduce herself with her correct pronunciation of her name. And let's get going and talk about this fantastic place here. Your name, Alana, what's your role in name and title?
Alana Herrera, and I'm the museum curator at the Transcona Museum.
Yes, so we're at the museum today talking to Alana a bit about the museum because we found that a lot of people, first of all, don't know we exist and don't know what's inside the building. They drive by every day. So we thought we'd share a few things and highlights about the museum in the hopes that maybe other Transconians would find time to come and visit, see the current display, and even buy some of the promo items. So Alana, what was this building before it became the museum?
This building has actually had numerous iterations. It was initially built as the Bank of Toronto, and it served as the bank until about the early 1940s when the bank moved out and it became the Transcona Municipal Office. So you would come here to pay your water bill, get your dog license. We have photos of people voting in this building. We've heard stories that at one point there was a used clothing store in the basement. There were public health offices upstairs. And then after Transcona amalgamated into the City of Winnipeg, it became a City of Winnipeg building. And there were City of Winnipeg offices in here for a time. And then in the early 1980s, the museum moved in.
Wow, Murray.
Yeah, and I do have quite a history in Transcona. And one of the interesting things that you just brought up was the fact that I actually applied for a full-time position here with the Transcona Fire Department, which started in 1970, and it was, you're right, Alana, it was the municipal office, and came in here and submitted my application, and yeah, so there is a lot of history in this building. Yeah,
it is a lot, and so how many artifacts you think that are in here in storage or on display at any one time?
At any one time, it's got to be less than 1% is on display. We have probably over 50,000 artifacts in our collection, and that's artifacts, archival materials. So archival materials, that's photographs, slides, framed items, newsletters, papers, letters, and then artifacts are the physical things that people used.
Yes, I know that a lot of the old Transcona views, the Transcona News, I should say, paper. They got everyone going back to the beginning of time?
Not everyone back to the beginning of time. We have the early 19-teens newspapers. Unfortunately, when the town went bankrupt, there was no paper in 1918, which would be a very interesting year to have a newspaper. Yeah. So many things happened. We don't have that. And then the newspaper didn't start back up again until 1931. So we have from 31 on until later in the 70s, but then it changed then again. So we are missing a few dates here and there, but mostly from 31 to the end of the 60s, we have full.
Interesting. So if somebody wanted to look at one, they'd have to make an appointment. How does that work? If somebody wanted to, hey, I want to look back for an article in a particular newspaper, how would they arrange that?
If they wanted to look at the early 19-teen ones, unfortunately, due to the condition of those newspapers, we have to look for you. They rip very, very easily. But if it's from 31 and on, we have a couple volumes that are in pretty bad shape because they're all bound together. But if someone's interested in looking through the newspapers, like you said, it's best to make an appointment. They can either call or send us an email. And we ask that people do that because sometimes we have school groups in. And if you come in and you want to go through the newspaper when there's 25 grade 2s in the museum, that's not going to work out so well. So make an appointment. We'll schedule time just for you here at the museum. And then we'll pull the items that you're interested in. And then if you want copies, we can make things like that for you as well.
Alana, I noticed just walking around your new displays here that you've set up and everything, you have everything is numbered. When did you start, collecting the artifacts? Or pardon me, when did you start dating all the artifacts and what they are, and how do you ever do something like that?
Well, the museum's essentially probably from close to the very beginning of the museum. All artifacts are assigned what is called an accession number. So the way it works for us here at the museum, it has the date of the year it was donated, the lot, so which donation it was in that year, if it was the first one, if it was the 53rd one, and then how many things are in that donation, and then the numbers keep going from there. So ideally that started right at the very beginning, and it's something we continue on because that's how we track things in the museum. That's how we're able to say where something is stored, where something is displayed, other displays it's been in the past. So that number is very, very important. So we've been working very hard to make sure every single artifact is numbered. And right now we're actually working on a project to photograph every artifact in the collection as well.
Wow, that would be a big task. You need volunteers to help you on that one?
We have been very fortunate. For the past couple of years. We've been able to get a grant from the province of Manitoba to actually do that work. We have a very skilled individual who's been doing it for 3 years for us. They can't just be any old photograph. Actually, we're doing photographs to archival standards. So there's extra stuff that needs to be done. It's not just as simple as taking a photo. We have to capture the metadata. We have master copies and surrogate copies and online copies. So it is a bit of a process to do. So unfortunately, that has not been a volunteer project, but we do have other projects that we've had volunteers work on in the past and are currently working on. We also have volunteers who want to help out during special events or work on specific things. So we try to match the volunteer to the project that they want to do and what work we have available.
Very interesting.
And Alana, you're not here by yourself. You have an assistant with you, and I think we should mention about Jennifer. She is all. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Maybe we can just ask Jennifer one or two questions.
Now, when did you get involved, Jennifer, in being part of the museum, and why?
I came on as the assistant curator in the summer of 2016, so that's 8.5 years. And I basically help Alana wear many of the hats here at the museum. So everything from front of house to back of house, collections, exhibits, programming, events, and all that fun stuff.
And there's so much behind the scenes. Like people don't really, you just don't sit here and say, well, let's move something here, move something there. Everything has to be documented, has to be organized, has to be kept in certain condition. That's why you don't want people just touching without gloves or touching without permission, because we want to protect it. You've been entrusted with things from people's basements and attics from the beginning of time in Transcona, and you want to make sure it's protected. So did you have to go to school to learn this stuff?
Yes, so I have my master's in museum studies from the University of Toronto, and I did work in museums prior to getting my schooling in museum studies. So I have experience in mostly rural museums, sports museums, some archival work.
And myself, one of my very first jobs ever was actually at the Western Development Museum in Moose Jaw. But I've also worked for Parks Canada up in the Yukon. I worked at the Australian Credit Union Archives on a small contract when I was there a number of years and years ago. I also went to school for museums. I did the Algonquin College program, the Applied Museum Studies.
Well, we got some great talent at Transcona, Murray.
We knew that the two of these girls were talented, but I think what really came to light was our project to get a structure over 2747. And these two ladies worked, it was endless, going after grants and trying to find money and being on site when all the work was being done. We can't thank these two girls enough for what they did to get that off the work.
Well, absolutely. And for those that don't know, would you say 274 Center is the largest artifact we have in our collection?
It's not only the largest, it's the largest, the heaviest, and the longest. It's so big it doesn't even fit in the building.
And that is, for those that don't know, and then if you don't know, then you haven't driven down Plessis, it's engine 2747 is in the park on Plessis. It's a Rotary Heritage Park. And then we had a committee led by Alana to build a structure. and to find money. And it was over $600,000 in total. And we found the money and made it happen because why did we do that? Why did we build a structure of that?
Well, the 2747 is not just any old steam locomotive. It was the very first one built in Western Canada, built right here at the Transcona shops. It was the first of 33 steam locomotives built at the Transcona shops. So it's significant not only to this community, but also to Canada itself. And then when it was retired at the end of 1959, beginning of 1960, it was going to be scrapped. And the Kiwanis Club here in Transcona got in touch with CN and said, we'd really like to have a steam locomotive. So they worked with CN, and CN donated the 2747, and they placed it in their park, Kiwanis Park, which has now been renamed Rotary Heritage Park, in March of 1960. So that engine has been on display in this community since then.
Yes, and I believe it was Bernie Wolf was one of the councillors at the time, or the city representative involved in moving the engine to the location.
I believe he is in some of the photographs that we have. Yeah, so he was part of it. We don't have a full list of names of everyone who was involved, but there was a number of individuals in the community who were involved in that project.
Peter, I don't want to age myself, but I actually sat on my bicycle in 1960 when they brought that steam engine off the Pine Falls subdivision. They built a special track for it, and it came into the park, and that's where they shut it down. I was right there in my little red and white bike.
Oh, you probably still have that bike, Murray. But and it's important. The reason we built the structure, because I was involved, and Murray was a little bit involved on the committee as well, was to protect, preserve, and have it available for the future generations to get up close and personal. And there's stairs on the side, and there's a project in a couple of weeks, I'll mention, maybe passed by the time this airs, but it's something very interesting because it's the first time people are actually going to get up close and personal to the engine.
Yeah, we thought of this fun little project to do with the 2747. We haven't been able to do anything like it before, but on December 7th from 1 to 3, we're going to be having photos with Santa on the train. So since we acquired the engine in 2015, this is the first time we've been able to do a large event like this safely for individuals. This past summer, after the structure opened, we did open up the gates and people did have an opportunity to get up into the cab. But I think it'll be something a little special doing it in the Christmas season with a photo with Santa. Mrs. Claus is going to be there. Santa's making a special trip just to come to the engine.
Boy, we're very special in Transcona.
We do, or we are special. Now, just one other question, Lana. Have you noticed increase in interest in the museum itself, seeing that, people have seen the work we've done with 2747, and all of a sudden, that's the Transcona Museum. Like, do you see a connection to that, or is it, or I wonder, maybe it's just my imagination that it's, how the word's getting out there about our museum.
I think more people do know a little bit about us because of that. We were out there doing a lot of promotion when we were doing the capital campaign, people learning about it. But, we still have people who come in every week, or even when we were at a market the other day and people said, "Oh yeah, I've driven by the museum, never been in." So people know about us. Maybe they haven't had an opportunity to come in the past, but we definitely hear that, and we like to let people know about the museum.
Or they have visited us before, but we may have been in a previous location, like when we were in the basement of the Rolling Mission or the library. So it's been a very long time that people have visited. And we do tell people that we rotate our exhibits once a year. So there's always something new on display. So I think that surprises them as well. And then it's that draw to, I need to come back and see what's new.
Yeah.
And really, this is price reasonable for people to come in.
Yes.
What is the price?
We are admission by donation.
Admission by donation. We accept donation. We appreciate donation, but we're not forcing people to make a donation when they come. We want people to come in, enjoy the artifacts, learn about the history of Transcona, and perhaps even contribute to the museum by volunteering someday or purchasing something from our gift shop. So, we have a not real formal gift shop, but we have a lot of stuff for sale that would be appropriate for Christmas, perhaps. Can you name some of the key items that are for sale?
Yes, we have a gift shelf. So one of the things that we did when we started the campaign for the 2747 is we've developed merchandise specifically for the engine, or where all proceeds go to the engine. And one of our most popular designs we've come up with is this. We have it on t-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, bookmarks, coasters, postcards, pins. It says, "I'm not old, I'm classic." And it has an image of the 2747 on there. And that one has been pretty popular. But we also have other t-shirts, sweatshirts, and hoodies with the engine on it. We have postcards that, you know, say Transcona on it, or have some other designs. We have some books from some local authors and some not. What else?
Because we are Transcona, we have flamingo themed items. So we have some keychains, which are really fun, stickers, 1 or 2 Christmas ornaments left. So come on down if you want to snag one of the last 2.
And during the month of December, actually, today is November 29th. So we have a sale starting today that goes till December 21st. So you spend $40 and we're going to give you a little free gift with your purchase.
Whoa. And if you do buy a membership, then you get a discount too. And
select items are available, have the discount on them, but you can come into the museum to do your shopping. We also have an online store. So if you visit our website, transconamuseum.mb.ca, and under gift shop, you can visit our online store. And unfortunately, we're not able to do any shipping. So you can just, you would have to come to the museum to pick up your order, but you can place your order to guarantee your items for you.
I'm just looking at the shirt that you have on there, Alana, and like you said, it says, "I'm not old, I'm classic." Mm-hmm. I would have to get one that says, "I'm old, but classic lover."
Yeah, we both resemble that comment. Yes, right. So what would you say is the most unusual artifact that is in our collection that people don't see because it's not on display very often? You have something unusual.
I have my favorite. I don't know if that's Jen's favorite. And it's a really weird one. And it's a bit of a head scratcher. And actually, there was an article written in Atlas Obscura magazine about it. But we have a baby beluga whale in a jar. And it is a head, like, why is that here? How did that get here? And that is my favorite artifact in the collection.
Do you have one, Jen?
I do. I think it's the first mayor of Transcona's chair. We got the offer of donation a couple of years ago from the family. The story behind it is the first mayor of Transcona, Colin Maxwell, was only mayor for about 8 months, and he decided not to take up the post again. And the community was so grateful that they gifted him this chair. So it's this beautiful red leather chair with the plaque on it. The family approached us a couple of years ago, and it has been well traveled across Canada since 1913, and it has come home to Transcona, and it does go on display every once in a while.
Nice. Now, well, do you have a favorite display, Murray?
Actually, the beluga, the baby beluga. It's to see it in the jar there is amazing. You know, you just wonder, you know, where did it come from? I mean, Churchill, or does anybody know?
My best guess, from what I've been able to put together with the paperwork, is it came in with part when we got the Patterson collection. The Patterson collection is a collection of Indigenous archaeological items as well as ethnographic items that there was a gentleman who had this collection, and then he sold it to the Transcona Springfield School Division. And it traveled around to different schools for about a year, and the schools went, that is a lot of work. So they loaned it to the museum, and then later donated the whole collection to the museum. So in going through an inventory of when that collection came to the museum, I found a list, and it said, baby beluga whale in a jar. So my thought is, when I was growing up, I remember the science rooms of schools having specimens in jars. So I think at some point, the baby beluga whale got mixed in with the other items within that collection, traveled around, and it came here. I don't know why, but it came in with that part of the collection, and that's my guess as to how it became part of the Indigenous collection that we have.
Lana, it's sitting in a liquid in the jar. Is it? Is it like alcohol or do you
Formaldehyde.
Formaldehyde?
Yeah.
And that's there for. Do you ever change it? Or?
Actually, a couple of years ago, I noticed that the solution was actually evaporating. So I contacted the Manitoba Museum because they have specimens in their collection and worked with their natural history collections assistant. And they were actually able to change the solution for us and gave us a better lid. And we have special tape that goes on it now so that it can't evaporate. But we were able to do that with the support of the Manitoba Museum because I didn't know how to go out and buy the chemicals and do all of that. We don't have a proper lab here. So luckily they were able to help us out, and that we were very grateful for that.
Yeah, you mentioned the Indigenous connection, the Patterson connection. That's a massive collection that you can't even display all the stuff that's involved in that session. How big is that?
We have about 3,400 archaeological items, and then there's, I'm not even sure off the top of my head, the ethnographic elements of that collection as well. Just like many other things, we can't display everything that the museum has. So we are limited, but some of it is on display with previous people who've worked at the museum. There was someone who did their master's in archaeology with the collection. So we have a map in the back that shows where some of the items have actually come from.
Just interesting history, and people wouldn't think that's connected to Transcona, but we actually, even today, I think we have an Indigenous percentage of our population that's Indigenous type of sort.
Yeah, a recent stat that I saw that was that Transcona has the highest population of Métis individuals in the city of Winnipeg. Like out of all the different communities, Transcona has the highest. So we don't have any contemporary in Métis history or Indigenous history. Our collection goes back to the individual who was collecting, but that is something that is missing from our collection. It's not the only thing. There's giant gaping holes in the collection here of the museum where we don't have everything that tells the full story of Transcona, and that's something that we would like to be able to do, but the catch-22 is we don't have that much room. So
yeah, that is a catch-22, and really the history of Transcona is changing daily. More people are moving in from all over the world, and they bring a history with them, and they're creating new history for Transcona. So there's an evolution going on, and like you say, we only have so much room. We're coming up with ideas, but we have so much room. But we are actually displaying things off-site at the moment. I believe we have 2 or 3 places.
Yes, so we have a few off-site displays. We have the Transcona Library, the Transcona Legion, and East End Community Club. We also display reproduction images at ABC Power Tools and Nello Altamar's office, who is our MLA for Transcona, just down the street. And
Dell's, I think, restaurant have them.
That was some research that we had done in the past where they purchased copies of images. For Nello's and ABC Power Tools, we change out the images for them, so they're just on loan to them.
Yes. And we also do some slideshows for Transcona Physiotherapy just down the street. So every couple months we refresh their slideshows for them.
So that's one way we get some stuff out of the building and pictures out and just share the history, because that's what it's all about. But I know this is just touching on a few things, but it's so interesting. I didn't mention the collection that Mr. Quelch, the principal of TCI at one time, what's his collection called?
That would be our Lepidoptera collection, and Lepidoptera is the scientific word that means scaly wing. So Mr. Quelch's collection is butterflies and moths. So we have over 8,000 butterflies and moths from Manitoba to all around the world because he traded with other lepidopterists.
Yes, I'm not going to say that word, but it's interesting. If you haven't said that, like when that's on display, that's very interesting because it's from all over the world. And I knew Mr. Quelch. I've been in his basement when he had the collection there, and it was nice that he's donated it. We got it here still. So,
yes, we rotate the butterflies out when they are on display because they're light sensitive. So we can't have them out for too long a time because we don't want the colors to fade on the wings. So that is a conservation concern that we have and that we're actively thinking about.
Well, this is so interesting, and Murray, that for people who don't know, there's just so much we could talk about here, but we just want to give people a sense of what's in this building if they've never been here before. And when the building's open, to come in and look at the display. If they want to do some research, just make an appointment. They can arrange that, and it's all about sharing the history and stories of Transcona and the pioneers that made it great and continue to make it great.
Peter, yes, exactly. And I have one last question I have to ask you. If I have an artifact that I want to give to the museum, how do you go about? Do you just bring it down and say, here, you can have, like, is there, I know there's a process.
Yeah, it's again, like we talked about, the best thing to do is to make an appointment. I am the only one who's able to accept items into the collection, so I need to be here. So if you were to just pop in and say I'm on vacation, Jennifer's not going to be able to accept the item into the collection. And then there has to be, we have certain collecting mandates for the museum, and specifically it has to fit within our mission. So it has to help preserve and promote the community spirit of Transcona through sharing our history and stories for the benefit of all. So there has to be a connection to Transcona, but it can't, a really weak connection like I moved here 30 years ago and it's just been sitting in my basement is not maybe as strong of a connection as this was used at this business or by this individual while they did this in Transcona, because it's the story behind the artifact that gives it its value to us. We can have two typewriters and they could be exactly the same, and one was used by, say, the last mayor of Transcona as he wrote his final letter saying, he didn't want to join the city of Winnipeg, which was actually kind of true, and another typewriter where we don't know any history on it, and the one that has the story is the one with the value. So we want people to be able to tell us the story, so if they just drop something off at the door, we don't know the story behind it. Plus, then there is paperwork, and the paperwork is actually you're transferring ownership of that item to the museum. So now we are the caretakers of this item. This item belongs to us, and it's we are the ones responsible for taking care of it. So there's numerous things that we need to do to accept an item into the collection, and unfortunately, due to space constraints, or if we already have something like exactly like that in the collection or similar, we might not be able to accept it. So we're unable to accept everything. But if we are, you can call ahead, but make an appointment. We'll go through the items and we'll be able to complete the paperwork.
That's so important because years later, when you're looking at an artifact, it's important to know the source, the history, and the story behind it. Now, one last question for me is we didn't talk about the military collections. So there's a lot of military information here that you don't necessarily have to go through special books. You got books with things in it. What kind of stuff do you have available for people to research or maybe even add information to the relative who served?
Yeah, so one thing that people can just come in and look at any time is our books of honor. And we have a World War I, a World War II, and a Korean Book of Honor. And those books have the names of everyone that we know of from Transcona who participated in those wars. And our sort of cutoff is you had to have been living in Transcona when you enlisted. So for World War I, we have over 400 individuals in that book. For World War II, we have over 800 men and women listed in that book. And Korea, that one there's 5 or 6 that I was able to find. But if people come in, we've had people come in and they say, oh, that's my grandfather, but you don't have that much information on him. We can give you a form to fill out and give us more information so we can update that book. And then we also have another book that has that information, but specifically those individuals who were killed in action, both in World War I and World War II. So we have that here. We have the wheel from the HMCS Transcona, which was a minesweeper ship in World War II named after the community. We also have in the collection a number of military uniforms and other items related to World War I and World War II in the collection. One special one that we have is we actually have a World War II women's RCAF uniform, which is quite special, actually. We would like to have more, because we know of other women who enlisted as well. We'd like to have more representation, like from World War II, of some of the women's contribution as well.
See, that's fantastic. So there's a bunch of segments of collections here that relate to certain things, and this is a great place to put it. Except when I look around the room, you can only see so much, and but they're here, and the family have things and they want to donate. They have a special story behind it, and this is the place to put it. It gets protected and show it at some point for others to see. So, Mary, oops.
Oh, I was just going to say, if someone, has something and maybe it doesn't fit our collecting mandate, maybe it's not necessarily from Transcona, but they wanted to go to a museum, we can also recommend other museums that might be interested or other organizations they can contact to get the word out that they're looking to donate these items. So just because we're unable to take it doesn't mean it maybe doesn't deserve to be in a museum. It's just we can maybe help you find somewhere else for it to go as well.
Yes, so it's somewhere as opposed to in their basement and in the garage sale. It gets displayed. So any closing comments, Murray?
No, this has been great. Just don't realize I'm actually, we've just touched the surface on different questions. We could probably sit here a whole day and not even cover half of it. So no, it was very super interesting.
So the key is getting people out or in the door, kind of see the building for yourself, see a heritage building and see what's on display. It's not on display for very long, and then it's changed over every year. So any closing comments, Alana?
Oh, Jen and I are happy to talk about what we do here at the museum, and we could probably talk to you for a whole day. So, it's good. But, if anyone ever has any questions, they can give us a call. They can send us an email. And we're happy to answer any questions or provide information, and we'll do research for other people too. If you have a research request, if you wanted to know more about your family, we can do that for you as well.
Well, that's wonderful. Jennifer, any closing comments?
No, this has been real great. Thank you for letting me jump on into this conversation, and hopefully those listening, we see you visiting the museum real soon.
Well, that's great because we're not really famous people yet, but this is podcast number 7, so we're going to spread the word, and it's about making people aware of things in Transcona they may not be fully aware of, and especially now on Plessy, they see this giant engine, and Murray arranged to have a wreath put on the engine for this seasonal Christmas holiday season, and we're putting lights on it today. So it's all about showing people what we have in the museum and how the engine is connected. So we really appreciate you being here and that your doors are open. And like you say, there's a website. Look up the Transcona Museum on the website and find out the phone number and when their hours of operation. And that's all I have for the podcast today.
Just to mention, we are also active on social media. So we have a Facebook page, at what used to be called Twitter. We have a Twitter account. We have an Instagram account, and we have a TikTok account. So, you can also look for us on social media, and it's always just Transcona Museum.
Okay, and our podcast link, we'll put this link in the podcast. Okay.
Wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year if we don't, get another chance to do a podcast before Christmas. But, this has been fun, and I hope people get a kick out of it too, because we sure do.
Yeah, okay, perfect. So until next time, it's Peter Martin
and Marie Rougeau,
and signing off for this podcast.